Welcome to Nature's Pharmacy, the podcast where we explore the incredible healing power hidden in nature's most remarkable plants. I'm your host, Larry Allen, and today we're diving deep into one of the most fascinating medicinal plants on our planet, the so-called miracle leaf. With me today is Dr. Lindiwe Mbulu, an ethnobotanist and traditional medicine researcher who has spent over 2 decades studying African healing plants. Dr. Mbulu, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Larry. I'm delighted to be here, especially to discuss this extraordinary plant that has captured the attention of both traditional healers and modern scientists worldwide.
Now, before we dive in, I have to ask, miracle leaf sounds almost too good to be true. What exactly are we talking about here?
That's a wonderful question, Larry. The plant we're discussing is scientifically known as Bryophyllum pinnatum, though it goes by many names around the world. In English, it's called the leaf of life or wonder leaf. In West Africa, particularly among Yoruba speakers, it's known as Iwe Abamoda, while the Igbo people call it Oda Opwe.
And I understand this isn't just folklore. There's real science backing up these claims.
Absolutely. What's remarkable is how recent scientific research is validating many traditional uses that have been practiced for centuries. Just this year, we've seen groundbreaking studies published in major journals examining everything from its wound healing properties to its potential anti-cancer effects.
Let's start with the basics. What makes this plant so special from a botanical perspective?
Bryophyllum pinnatum is truly unique, Larry. It's a succulent plant native to Madagascar, but it's now found throughout tropical and subtropical regions worldwide. What sets it apart is its remarkable ability to reproduce. You can literally grow an entire new plant from just a single leaf. The leaves produce what we call plantlets or bulbils along their margins, which is why some people call it the mother of thousands.
That's incredible. Now let's talk about the traditional uses. I've been reading about applications for everything from arthritis to diabetes. Can you walk us through some of the most established traditional applications?
The range is truly impressive, Larry. In traditional African medicine, we've documented its use for respiratory conditions like asthma and chest congestion, digestive issues including ulcers and stomach pain, skin conditions, wound healing, and even for calming restless babies. The preparation methods are quite specific. For different ailments, healers might use the raw leaf juice, boiled preparations, or topical applications.
And what does modern science tell us about these traditional uses?
This is where it gets exciting. Recent research has identified numerous bioactive compounds in the plant. Studies published in 2024 have shown that the leaf contains bufadienolides, triterpenes, phenolic compounds, alkaloids, flavonoids, and glycosides, all of which contribute to its therapeutic properties.
Can you break that down for those of us who aren't chemists?
Of course, think of these as nature's pharmacy, different compounds that work together. The flavonoids act as antioxidants, protecting our cells from damage. The phenolic compounds have anti-inflammatory properties. The bufadienolides, which are quite unique to this plant family, have shown promise in laboratory studies for their potential anti-cancer effects.
Speaking of anti-cancer effects, I understand there's been some groundbreaking research recently.
Oh yes, there have been some fascinating developments. A study published in BMC Complementary Medicine and Therapies examined the plant's effects on cervical cancer cells. The researchers found that chloroform extracts from the leaves showed significant anti-cancer activity, particularly against HPV-related cervical cancer cells. Now, it's important to note that this was laboratory-based research, not human trials, but it's opened up entirely new avenues for investigation.
That's remarkable. What about wound healing? I know that's one of the traditional uses that seems to have strong scientific backing.
The wound healing research is particularly compelling, Larry. A 2023 study published in the National Center for Biotechnology Information showed that topical gels containing Bryophyllum pinnatum extract significantly promoted wound healing in laboratory studies. The researchers found that it increased VEGF expression, that's vascular endothelial growth factor, which is crucial for forming new blood vessels and healing wounds.
Now let's get practical for our listeners. If someone wanted to use this plant, and I assume we need to talk about safety first, what should they know?
Safety is absolutely paramount, Larry. First and foremost, pregnant women should never use this plant. The traditional knowledge is very clear on this point, and it's supported by pharmacological data showing that compounds in the plant can affect uterine contractions.
Good to know. What about other precautions?
Like any potent plant medicine, moderation is key. The traditional saying is, the use of plants must not be abused. Start with small amounts, observe your body's response, and remember that natural doesn't automatically mean harmless. Also, anyone with serious medical conditions should consult healthcare professionals before using herbal remedies.
Let's talk about some specific applications. I understand there are different preparation methods for different conditions.
Exactly. For respiratory issues like asthma or chest congestion, traditional healers often heat the leaves near a fire to soften them, then squeeze out the juice and add a pinch of salt. For digestive issues, the leaves might be chewed raw, typically first thing in the morning or last thing at night. For skin conditions and wound healing, the heated, softened leaves are applied directly to the affected area.
What about dosages? That seems like it would be critical information.
Traditional dosages are quite specific. For internal use, it's typically 1 to 2 leaves, or about 3 tablespoons of prepared liquid, taken morning and evening. Treatment periods usually range from 3 days to 2 weeks, depending on the condition. The key principle is to start small and monitor results.
That's what I find so compelling about plants like this. When multiple cultures independently discover similar uses, it really suggests something real is happening.
Exactly, and that's where modern phytochemistry comes in. We can now identify why these traditional uses work. For instance, the anti-inflammatory compounds explain why it's effective for conditions like arthritis, while the antimicrobial properties support its use for infections.
Let's talk about some of the more unusual traditional uses. I've read about it being used for things like calming babies and even for snake bites. What's the science behind these applications?
Absolutely. It's an excellent candidate for home cultivation. It thrives in warm climates and can be grown indoors in cooler regions. The key is well-draining soil and bright, indirect light. Many people grow it as a house plant, not just for its medicinal properties, but also because it's quite attractive with its thick, scalloped leaves and occasional clusters of small flowers.
Now, let's address the elephant in the room. We're calling it a miracle leaf, but surely it's not a cure-all.
You're absolutely right to bring that up, Larry. While this plant has remarkable properties, we need to maintain realistic expectations. It's a valuable addition to natural health approaches, and the traditional knowledge combined with emerging scientific research is truly exciting. However, it's not a replacement for modern medicine when serious conditions are involved.
That's a great point. What do you see as the future for plants like Bryophyllum pinnatum in healthcare?
I'm quite optimistic, Larry. We're seeing increasing integration of traditional knowledge with modern research methods. I expect we'll see more clinical trials, better standardization of extracts, and possibly the development of pharmaceutical preparations based on the plant's active compounds. At the same time, there's growing appreciation for traditional preparation methods and holistic approaches to health.
Are there any current clinical trials or major research projects our listeners should know about?
Yes, there are several ongoing studies, particularly in India, Brazil, and parts of Africa. Universities are conducting trials on everything from diabetes management to wound healing applications. The challenge with plant research is that it's often underfunded compared to synthetic drug development, but we're seeing more interest from both academic institutions and pharmaceutical companies.
Before we wrap up, what would be your top 3 takeaways for someone interested in exploring this plant?
First, education is key. Learn about proper identification, preparation methods, and safety considerations. Second, start slowly and pay attention to your body's responses. And third, remember that plant medicine works best as part of a holistic approach to health. Good nutrition, adequate sleep, stress management, and appropriate medical care when needed.
Excellent advice. Now, where can people find reliable information about Bryophyllum pinnatum?
I'd recommend starting with peer-reviewed botanical and ethnobotanical journals. The National Center for Biotechnology Information has an excellent database of research papers. For practical information, books on medicinal plants by reputable ethnobotanists are valuable. And of course, consulting with qualified herbalists or naturopathic practitioners who have experience with this plant.
Any final thoughts you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think what excites me most about plants like Bryophyllum pinnatum is how they remind us of the incredible pharmacy that nature provides. They connect us to traditional wisdom while opening doors to future medical discoveries. But perhaps most importantly, they encourage us to think more holistically about health and healing.
Dr. Lindiwe Mbulu, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us today. This has been absolutely fascinating.
Thank you, Larry. It's been a pleasure discussing this remarkable plant with you and your listeners.
To our listeners, remember that this information is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any medical condition. Always consult with qualified healthcare professionals before using any herbal remedies, especially if you have existing health conditions or are taking medications. That's all for today's episode of Nature's Pharmacy. I'm Larry Allen, and we'll be back next week with another fascinating journey into the world of medicinal plants. Until then, stay curious, stay healthy, and remember, sometimes the most powerful medicine is growing right in your backyard.